Alright, real quick. This isn't your usual haunted house or creepy shadow story. This one is closer than you think, because it's about something you use every day. Your phone. Ever gotten those late-night calls that just don't feel right? Well, this story takes that feeling and twists it into something much darker. Stay sharp, don't turn away, and maybe, just maybe, answer your next call. Late in 2023, Eva's life felt like a faded photograph, quiet, routine, barely changing from one day to the next. She was 28, living alone in a rented one-bedroom apartment on the edge of a peaceful suburb. Her weeks followed a set pattern: commute, desk job, leftover takeout reheated in the microwave, a few texts with old friends, and long, blurry hours lost in TV shows and endless social media scrolling. Everything about her world felt predictable, soothing until it wasn't. It started with a phone call. That first call came at 1:38 a.m. on a Tuesday. Eva woke thinking it was her alarm, but the screen blinked with an unknown number she'd never seen. She watched it buzz, then fade to silence. She shrugged it off as a wrong number, rolled over, and tried to fall back asleep. But 2 nights later, the phone rang again. This time at 2:16 a.m. Same pattern, unknown number, one ring, then a voicemail waiting, sometimes just silence, sometimes the faintest hiss of static. Eva tried blocking the numbers, but every call seemed to come from somewhere new, always at strange hours that blurred the edge of night and dawn. It soon became nightly. At first, she ignored them, but gradually, she started picking up, half awake, half annoyed. Every time, it was the same. An unnatural quiet, as if someone was on the other end but refused to speak. But after a few seconds, she'd hear it, a slow inhale, deep and deliberate, then a long exhale. It sounded human, but twisted, almost mechanical. She could never decide if it was someone playing a sick joke or something worse, a feeling that clung to her skin well after the calls ended. She told herself it was random, a glitch, maybe a neighbor with pocket dials, or a prank by someone with too much time. But the call times grew eerier. 2:16 a.m., then 3:17 a.m., then 4:44 a.m. Different hours, all disturbing in their pattern. The calls would come at almost the exact minute every night. It started feeling like a message, a ticking clock, but she never understood what it wanted. Soon, her sleep was wrecked. She would jolt awake before the phone even rang, cold sweat pricking at her skin, stomach tight with dread. She checked community forums and asked friends, but nobody had experienced anything like it. Even her parents told her to turn off the phone at night, but somehow, the fear followed her even with the device powered down. She tried changing phones, swapping SIM cards, resetting settings, even borrowing her friend's old iPhone for a week. But the calls found her. Always the same heavy breath, the same creeping silence. It wasn't just the calls. Small things started happening around her apartment. Sometimes, she'd find her bedroom door slightly ajar, even though she closed it. Light bulbs flickered even after replacing them. Her laptop froze at random times, and once, she woke to find her kitchen window wide open in the middle of a rainstorm, though she was sure she'd locked it. Sleep became rare. In meetings at work, Eva'd catch herself doodling the call times, trying to find patterns in the chaos. If she was honest, she felt like she was being watched, like someone was standing just behind her shoulder, careful never to get caught in her sight. When the calendar rolled over to December, Eva got desperate. She called her phone company, explained everything. They shrugged. "It's probably spam," the technician said, "or a spoofed number. Not much we can do." The calls continued. And one night, everything changed. It was 3:17 a.m., a time she'd come to dread for reasons she couldn't explain. The phone rang again, but this time, when Eva answered, the silence on the other end wasn't empty. It felt thick, alive. She waited, clutching the phone tightly to her ear, heartbeat hammering in the dark. Then, for the first time, she heard a voice. But not just any voice, her own. Cracked, barely a whisper, distorted by static. "Help me." Eva stared at the phone and felt the blood drain from her face. Was it a trick? Had someone recorded her speaking? She searched her memory, but couldn't recall ever saying those words out loud. She hung up, locked the phone, and tried to forget it. But minutes later, Her apartment's front door rattled. Someone was outside. Eva crept to the peephole, heart racing. On the other side, nothing but empty darkness. The next day, Eva couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. She kept glancing over her shoulder, started double-checking the locks on her windows and doors. Her friends noticed her change, but every time she tried to talk about it, she stumbled over the details, never able to fully explain the creeping fear. Her phone log showed something impossible. 4 calls at 3:17 a.m., 2 incoming, 2 outgoing. All from her own number. She hadn't called anyone, hadn't answered herself. The days blended into nights filled with breath and shadows. Sometimes, Eva'd wake up certain that she'd seen someone standing at the foot of her bed. Other times, she'd hear her name whispered from the phone, not in a voice she recognized, but whispered through the static in the darkest part of the night. Texts started appearing, brief and cryptic. "You forgot. Pick up now. Last call." She began writing down everything, filling a notebook with call times, weird occurrences, and changes in her routine. Looking back, she saw the dread building, but didn't know what she was preparing for. One evening in early January, Eva's phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. Last chance. The lights above her dining table flickered. The air felt icy, as if a window had been left open. Her breath came out as fog. The phone rang again, this time. The sound felt different, lower, heavier, like thunder rolling in the distance. Eva answered. On the other end, a voice spoke. Clearer than ever before, but eerily wrong. "I'm trapped in your last call. Missed it once, now I'm forever lost." Her phone screen cracked suddenly, distorting both the reflected room and her pale, frightened face. The call ended in a sharp, echoing click. Eva dropped the phone. Silence filled the apartment. Even the city outside seemed to halt. She stood there, staring into space, knowing nothing in her world would ever be normal again. Eva barely slept after that night. She sat curled up on the couch until sunrise, holding her cracked phone in both hands like it might explode. The voice kept replaying in her mind, "I'm trapped in your last call. Missed it once, now I'm forever lost." By morning, the unease had changed. It wasn't just fear, it was anticipation. She didn't know what for, but she was sure something was coming. When she left for work, the world felt off. The air was heavier, sounds more muffled. Neighbors she passed in the hallway didn't make eye contact. One man was standing perfectly still in the parking lot, staring at something only he could see. At her desk, Eva tried to drown herself in spreadsheets. But every so often, she'd catch her phone lighting up, not ringing, not vibrating, just waking up. Each time, the lock screen displayed 3:17 a.m., no matter the actual time. She'd lock it, it would go black, and a few minutes later it would do it again. Her boss walked past, asked if she was okay. She mumbled something about a headache. But the truth was, she'd started hearing faint noises under the sounds of the office, distant breathing, the static hiss of an open phone line. By the time she clocked out, the winter sun was already sinking. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, meeting and twisting on the pavement like they were reaching for her. That night, Eva decided she needed evidence. She Googled the cheapest indoor security camera she could get same-day delivery and set 3 of them up in her apartment. One in the bedroom, one in the living room, and one facing the front door. She told herself the recordings would prove she was overreacting, that the calls were just tech glitches, the moving shadows just tricks of her tired eyes. The first night's footage showed nothing unusual. The second night, though, was different. Half asleep, she heard the faint click of the camera in the living room turning on. She didn't get up, just listened. Later, reviewing the footage before work, her stomach turned to ice. At 3:17 a.m. exactly, her phone lit up on the coffee table. In the security feed's grainy black and white, it was just a rectangle of pale glow. Then, for less than a second, a figure leaned into view of the camera from outside its frame. It wasn't solid. Its edges flickered, as if the thing was being streamed from somewhere with bad signal. Its head tilted jerky, awkward, and though details were blurred, she could tell it was looking toward the phone. Then it was gone. The very next day, Eva returned from work to find a package resting against her door. No return address, no shipping label, just her name, written in an unsteady scrawl. Inside, cushioned by yellowed newspaper clippings, was an old rotary phone. Beige plastic, coiled cord, dust filling the tiny spaces between numbers on the dial. The moment she touched it, it rang. Not her cell phone. The rotary phone. The sound was wrong, deep and heavy, like each ring dragged on too long. She almost didn't answer. Almost. She picked up the receiver. The breath greeted her first, slow, deliberate. Then a voice unlike the ones before, deeper, male, gravelly, carrying the weight of something old. "Don't hang up." Not this time. Before she could respond, the line went dead. She stared at the rotary phone in her lap. On its underside, scratched into the plastic, was a date. Today's date. That night, Eva didn't sleep. She sat by the rotary phone, waiting. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. 2:40 a.m. Her apartment was silent, the kind of silence that felt like it was listening. At 3:17 a.m., her cell phone lit up. Caller ID, Eva Chen. Her own name. The rotary phone began to ring at the same time. Both sounds overlapped, one tinny and modern, one deep and resonant. She held her cell in one hand, reached with the other for the rotary's receiver. Which to answer? She didn't know. But a cold certainty filled her bones. Whatever choice she made would matter. She put the cell down. Picked up the rotary. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then, her own voice, desperate, whispering over a faint background of static and echoes. "I can't get out. It's here with me." Another voice cut in, overlapping hers. "You missed it once. No more chances." The line exploded into white noise so loud she dropped the phone. Lights in her apartment blew out all at once, showering the room in darkness. She doesn't remember moving, but she found herself standing in front of the mirror in her hallway. The faint glow from her shattered cell phone screen was the only light. In the reflection, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood the figure from the camera footage, closer now, its distortion sharper, the flickering edges bleeding into her outline. Its hand rested just above her shoulder without quite touching. It leaned forward until what should have been its face was level with her ear. Static poured into her head like floodwater. Then everything went black. When neighbors finally called for a wellness check 2 days later, the apartment was locked from the inside. The rotary phone sat in the middle of the living room carpet. The cord had been neatly cut. Her cell phone was found in the hallway, its screen stuck on one frozen display. 3:17 a.m. missed call Eva Chen. The cameras she'd set up were still recording. Police never released the footage, but one officer, off the record, told a neighbor he'd never seen anything like it. At 3:17 a.m., the feed showed Eva sitting alone in her living room. Then, in the blink of an eye, she was just gone. No fade out, no movement. Not even a frame of transition. As though someone had deleted her from reality. From that moment on, both the rotary phone and her cell lit up at 3:17 a.m. every night, ringing in perfect sync. No one dared to answer. A month later, a woman in a nearby building received a package on her doorstep. No sender information. Inside, an old rotary phone. It rang the moment she touched it. If you liked this chilling story, hit subscribe and drop your creepiest missed call or ghost story in the comments. Could be your tale that haunts the next video. And whatever you do, don't ignore the calls at 3:17 a.m. You might not get a second chance. Stay spooky. I'll see you next time.